The truth has arrived.
Hey, now I'm back in town. This time I'll shake you down. I'm taking back my crown, 'cause I'm the best around. And my name you shout it out. I want to hear it loud. You hang your head in shame. Don't you forget this day.
This is Jonathan Gilliam, back in on The Experts, your favorite and most important podcast. Sing it again, Melissa. So, I wasn't going to come on here because I'm actually really sick. Every time I go to SHOT Show, it seems like I get sick. I don't know what it is. I don't know what they have in the air there in Vegas, although I've been to Vegas before and I didn't get sick. I think it's because SHOT Show is the largest firearms industry trade show in the world, so people are coming from all over the world, and every year I come home and I have flu-like symptoms, and it just sucks. But you know what? We just keep on grinding. So that's what I wanted to do. I missed a couple days with the podcast. My goal is to have one out every day. But unfortunately, when you feel like this, and then I hosted Sebastian Gorka's show on Monday, and then I have a speech Thursday in St. Louis, and then hosting the Hannity show on Friday, I figured that getting rest was something that was very important. So here we are now, and hopefully you'll be listening on Friday. And if you're in St. Louis and you get a chance to come out, I'll give you the specifics on that a little bit later. So why don't we talk? One of the reasons why I wanted to come on here today, I'm not interviewing anybody. I'm not going to have any groundbreaking insight to different people that are experts in the United States or around the world. Not today. Today we're going to talk about what everybody else is talking about, the ridiculousness of this impeachment process. And we're also going to talk about the reality, because I want to touch on this. Okay, I touched on it a little bit before in the first episode, and also when we talked to Drago in the second episode. If you haven't got to listen to that, you definitely need to go listen. But what I want to touch upon is what I'm going to be talking about in St. Louis on Thursday, and that is the indoctrination of the education system around the country, really around the world, and this sexualization that is occurring within that. You may not realize that, but it's happening. So I'm going to eventually, probably next week, have Tracy Belmonte on here to talk about that. She's a 21-year education specialist, otherwise known as a teacher, and she has seen amazing stuff in the Department of Education and in the teachers union. But I want to kind of warm you up for that. And then next week, we'll have a more in-depth discussion of this, especially after I go to this conference. But for now, let's just start talking about this ridiculous impeachment process and where it's come to now and what is happening in the Senate. This is all I really want to point out, okay? There's a couple things. I was reading an article today, and again, I gave this whole show yesterday on Monday on Sebastian Gorka's show when I hosted for him about the reality of headlines. Let me touch upon that real quick, and then I'll expound upon what I was talking about there. When I was hosting the other day, I explained how I usually host a radio show. Many people will spend days and days, if they're going to guest host, researching stuff, or, you have, for the people who host every day, they have a research team. What I tend to do is, based on my training experience in all these different agencies that I worked at in the United States Navy as a Navy SEAL officer, as a Federal Air Marshal, under the Department of Transportation. No, we were under the FAA at that point. Now it's under Department of Transportation. As a security contractor, kind of doing a bunch of stuff for Homeland Security, and then in the FBI here in New York City as a special agent. In all of these cases, what it allowed me to see was not just the reality, what headlines are. For instance, there was a helicopter crash that a helicopter and a plane crashed into each other on the Hudson River. It's a total ridiculous set of circumstances that led to two aircraft hitting each other in a sky that's totally empty. And it was a commuter helicopter where it's full of an Italian family and a private aircraft flown by a guy and his son. I will be coughing throughout this, just so you know. So when the helicopter and the plane crashed, boom, they hit. Both aircraft plunged into the Hudson River. I live not too far from there, and it was a Saturday, and I was the only FBI agent that responded, because you have to see if these things are going to be terrorism related. And at that point, I think I was running special events. It was close, somewhere around there, the time when I went to special events. I might have still been on a criminal squad. But anyway, nonetheless, I went down there. And I got on one of the dive boats, and I started taking pictures and sending information back to the headquarters in New York City for the FBI. And I remember as they were pulling the first body out of the water, God bless them, and I don't want to get too graphic in this story. I don't want to mean any disrespect to the people that perished that day. But one of the bodies had no arms. Because when you hit the water from over 1,000 feet up inside a metal box, it's going to do damage. Trust me on that. And so as they put the body into the dive boat, they also pulled up an arm. And they had the arm wrapped as they put it up there. Well, the helicopters were not allowed to be closer than like a mile or so away, and they have telephoto lenses. They can see pretty good. And they were reporting, get this, that a baby had been pulled out of the water, right? So these are the types of things that I found out, especially after, you hear about things happening, you reach out to your sources, guys that I used to work with either in the Bureau or in the SEAL teams, and you talk to them and you see the way it's bastardized when it's reported. And so it opened my eyes up back then to the reality of how these headlines immediately lead people down the wrong direction away from truth. So if the headline says a certain thing, the rest of the story just has to match the headlines. That's their starting point. They don't start from truth. They start from the headline. So if you have any insight or any understanding of the reality of how things go on, for instance, when we look at President Trump and his record as the president has been amazing, absolutely amazing. I mean, there's people that are unbiased, and when they look at his record and all the things that have happened under him, they say he's one of the greatest presidents in the history of the United States. But you're not going to hear that in the news, not even on Fox News. So as I was talking about on Sebastian Gorka's show, you have to take these headlines with a grain of salt as you move into the story. And so that's one of the things that I do when I get ready to go and host a radio show for somebody else. What I do is I immediately look at the headline and see if I can determine any type of bias or wrong reporting there. You can go and look at the same story in other locations, but a lot of times it comes from the same source, so you may or may not get anything there. So you should realize that going into the story, things are going to be manipulated. Now that you see that, and you see that the headline is actually the starting point, not the facts that they've gathered. The headline is the starting point for you, the reader, or you, the listener. And that's why all these people who claim to be conservatives or this or that, when you look at the reality of who they are, it's very similar to the same way that you look at a story. John Bolton, for instance, supposedly a neocon. I'm not really even sure what that is. All these people make up these terms. I like to keep it simple. Are you a constitutionalist or are you not? Do you believe in national security or do you not? Do you have a firm grasp on reality when it comes to fighting enemies or do you not? And I thought John Bolton had that. I met him before at Fox News. I thought he was a nice guy, very humble when I met him, although I hear that's not the case. And somebody who had the image of a person that would toe the line for rules and regulations, such as keeping the stuff at work that has to do with national security under wraps. And obviously, I was wrong. When we look at the person that John Bolton appears to be, and then we look at the way that he is behaving in this impeachment process and the foundation that he has laid that is causing havoc. I don't know. I'm not dumb enough or naive enough to think that he's, as people will just make up, oh, he's doing this on purpose. He's helping the president out with this. No, he's not. He's not really helping the president out at all. And in fact, when I look at the behavior of John Bolton now, I reflect back on the behavior of Jeff Sessions when he was the Attorney General. I look at the behavior of Reince Priebus when he was the president's right-hand man. Same thing. When I look at all these people and I look at who they claim to be, although they weren't in the president's cabinet, you look at Brennan with the CIA, John Brennan. You look at Clapper, who was the director of national intelligence. And you look at who they were and the behavior that they showed versus the who they claim to be, basically, who their headline was of who they are. It's all very similar. And I'm very, very let down by John Bolton because I'll tell you, John Bolton, I felt, and again, I'm not a person that worships people. I don't, I don't make the mistake because I've been around enough celebrities and politicians that I know that you cannot judge them from television. You just can't. You can't judge them by sound bites and actions that are reported. Some people I've met, Miley Cyrus, for instance, kooky as kooky can be, but very nice and good to her fans. I've met other people that I've done security for, and I'm not going to say their names, but they are nasty, mean individuals. And you don't want to be anywhere around them because you're ultimately going to get fired. And you can't see that like with Miley Cyrus. You look at her and you look at the reality of who she looks like or her behavior is terrible. I'm going to give you that. It's terrible. But when you see the person that she really is, it doesn't really add up because she's actually a very nice person. And when it's opposite with these people, they have this appearance of being conservative or Republicans. But what people don't realize is, as I always say, the Democrat and Republican parties are private companies. They really are. They're private companies. And so they are beholden to their company. And you are just another buyer, for instance. They if they can cut corners or do things or whatever or lie to your face, they'll do it in order to get you to buy. So when I look at John Bolton in this book that's timed to just come out at the right time and the ridiculousness of this, it's very insulting to the American people, I think. And I think John Bolton, like everybody else, has dug himself a grave, a big grave. And I hope he goes to it soon because he doesn't need to be anywhere around politics anymore. He doesn't need to be anywhere close to world leaders or leaders of our nation anymore because here's a guy who is in a national security position. He goes and writes a book about things that happened while he was in there because his little panties are in a wad. And he's revealing what I believe is false information or information that has no bearing on anything whatsoever. Because I don't know if you've realized this through all this. You probably have. The president hasn't done anything illegal. Nothing. My only question is, which I was going to bring up in a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and say it now. Where in the hell is the FBI? Why isn't, I know where they are. Let's face it, the FBI is the swamp. Law enforcement for the swamp. But why isn't Biden being investigated? Why isn't his son, Hunter Biden, being investigated? Why isn't all of these people being investigated who've gotten their kids into these positions, using their official position? Do you think Chelsea Clinton, or anybody else for that matter, could get a job like Chelsea Clinton did, right out of college, making almost $1 million a year or somewhere around there? No, it's not going to happen. Nobody makes that kind of money unless their parents are a politician or they hold some seat of power somewhere. It's not going to happen. And so that's why it's so important to stick to the law when you are in, because if I would do that, like if I use my position in the FBI or in the Navy to get somebody a job and they found out that I was using my official position to do that, I would be in trouble. I mean, I wouldn't really be able to get anybody that big of a job when I was an FBI agent, or maybe somebody was criminal. And I said, well, if you hire this person, I'll look the other way and we won't do an investigation. You see, that's why this is like it is. John Bolton, who goes into the White House and then is in a national security position and then goes and writes a book about it while the president's still in office and we're still engaged with the same enemy, should land his ass in jail. And the same thing with Joe Biden. The same thing with Hillary Clinton. When these people use their official position to get people a job or to, I don't know what John Bolton's whole thing, well, besides selling books and putting the country at risk, it should cause an investigation, not a report. It should be the same exact thing that would happen to us. Same thing with this conspiracy that was going on all over the past 3 years since this president's been in office, with James Comey and Peter Strzok and McCabe and all the rest of them, some of the Republicans, many of the Democrats, many of the people in media. You had Mueller, all these people, his whole team, they were all a part and still are a part of a conspiracy to overthrow this president. So when I look at the headlines and I look at what, in this one particular headline from Fox News that just came out, GOP develops aggressive Plan B, an impeachment trial, as several Dems appear to support acquittal. Now, that's interesting. Several Dems are supporting acquittal, but while at the same time, several Republicans are saying they want to see more, they may want to see witnesses. And Mitch McConnell, who's in charge over there of the Republicans, says that they may not actually get around that. You should be very concerned about this. This is the same thing that happened to this president when it came to the fake dossier. It wasn't just Democrats that did that. Those were Republicans involved in that. People in the media were involved in that. And I see the same thing going on here as I see there. You know, I watched a lot of this stuff with the Democrats coming up in front of the Senate, saying their stuff, and the Republicans doing the same thing. The Republicans, the people that were standing up for the president, his counsel, pretty much used media clips to go after all these different Democrats and the things that they had said. Not once did I see any dialogue or testimony from a law enforcement officer that says, yes, just like it would be in a regular trial, you know, if you'd done any of this stuff, trust me, they would have an FBI agent and they would be up on the stand testifying against you. These people have committed crimes. Why isn't the FBI investigating Joe Biden and Hunter Biden? Because they're swamped. That's why. And so they're not going to investigate them. They're not going to carry out the rule of law that would be the same for you and I. So when I watch these people stand up there and defend, you know, the president or lash out against him, as soon as they start using media clips, I'm like, this is just freaking ridiculous. I know the media clips that were used by the president's team were used because they were showing the exact words that the people on the left said, Adam Schiff and the rest of them. But there was no testimony from a law enforcement officer saying, yes, this would be a crime. It is a crime to use your official position to get somebody a job, especially your kid. I know people who have been arrested, the FBI agents that have been arrested for way less than that and investigated and usually cleared because the charges didn't hold anything. But I know somebody in the FBI that got fired from the Bureau because she was told, because of the travel days They were on a trip. She was told to put an extra day of per diem on her travel claim. She did. Some bean counter came back and said, no, that's fraud because you were gone this day or whatever. And they fired her for it. $56. She got fired. Lucky she didn't get prosecuted. I remember one time I was in my bureau car, brand new agent, and we were doing a surveillance, and my car was low on gas. And so you have to do this stuff fast. You get gas to get back out there. And in the haste, I pulled out my own credit card and charged the gas, $90 in gas. And then when I realized what it is, like, okay, well, whatever. I get the receipt and I'll go. Finish the surveillance. I go to my boss. I said, hey, listen, I accidentally put $90 on my own credit card for gas. He's like, dude, you're going to have to eat that. And I'm like, what do you mean? Can I just put the receipt in? He goes, no. If you put that in, they're going to investigate you fully. They're going to investigate you for some kind of fraudulent behavior because the possibility you could have fueled some other car up or yada, yada, yada. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous, but that's the way they treat the rest of us. Imagine if I had said, hey, boss, listen, I got my daughter. I don't have a daughter, but let's say I got my daughter a job for $900,000 because of my position. My boss would have said, stand up, turn around, put your hands behind your back. You just admitted to using your official position to get somebody a job. In the case of Hunter Biden, that wasn't only the case. They also used the official position of the vice president, Joe Biden, in order to keep him from getting in trouble and investigated by Ukraine. So when I look at John Bolton and I look at his behavior and I look at this entire nonsensical thing that's going on, I'm speechless. I'm speechless because it's happening right in front of us and nobody is doing anything about it. Now, do I expect the American people to go full force in on the government and stop it? No. But let's take the people in Virginia, for example. That was 20,000 people that showed up there. We should have millions of people showing up in Washington, D.C. It should be as easy as coordinating and getting them out there because, folks, it's not a secret to you. It is right out in the open. And whether you realize it or not, this country is going left. And not just left, it's going off the cliff of socialism. If you listen to episode 2, you would hear what Drago had to say about socialism, how it leads to communism, and how the reality is it's just as oppressive. And we're going that direction. And this game is being played right in front of you because these people think that they can lie and maneuver and do these things in front of the American people. And by and large, they're right, but they can do it in front of the American people. And the American people are too stupid to figure it out. Now, you tell me that that's not true. Because I think it is true. The American people are either too stupid or too lazy to get up and do something about it. You tell me which one it is. I'd like to think that you're too stupid. And I'll tell you why. Because stupid means that you haven't learned it yet. Lazy or ignorant means that you do know about it and you're not going to do anything about it. This is a crucial time in American history. And if the American people don't start standing up against this process and the ridiculousness of it, we can't even investigate a politician. That's not what the founding fathers intended. They should not be getting special treatment. That's not in the Constitution. Those are policy matters that were built by politicians. And it's bullshit. Because what it does is puts them in a different class of human being in this country, and that does not exist in this country. Should not exist in this country, I should say. It does exist. I hope you realize this. I know there's going to be people listening to this saying, he just called the American people stupid. Yeah, I did. But you have to listen to what I say. Because if you're listening to this and you're offended by that, that means that you're lazy. that you know and you don't care enough, or you're too ignorant. You've been given the facts and you refuse to get up and go do something about it, to stand together like they did in Virginia. Those people are neither ignorant or lazy or stupid. They are enlightened, and they got up and they stood together against that communist governor, Nathan, racist governor, governor that likes to kill babies. Said it himself. The other thing I find really interesting about Virginia, though, I will say this. You guys got up and you went and protested your Second Amendment, but you won't go protest the fact that the governor said we should be allowed to set babies to the side and let them die? What is going on in this country? What do you need to stand up? Or are you going to be like the Jews in Germany who were marched to a train and got on the train and they kept thinking it was going to get, okay, they're just going to move us or this or that. This didn't just happen for them in Germany. It was a process, and it occurred while they refused to get involved and stand up against. Listen, I would rather die fighting if I thought there was any chance of my child or me getting sent to a gas chamber. Now, I'm not anti-Semitic, and I'm very supportive of where I think my heritage is. I'm Christian, but I think, and as I explained in another podcast, I think that, Christian heritage is Judaism. But I'm not going to be like that in Germany. And I don't think that the American people should be like that. But you got to realize, they're talking about killing babies. Germany, they talked about killing babies. They're trying to take your guns away from you. They took their guns away from them in Germany. They're lying to the people in front of their face using propaganda and media. They did the same thing in Germany. So what is it going to take? Seriously, what is it going to take? They said if a woman doesn't want to have a baby after she's birthed it, they can set it to the side. Does your Constitution not mean anything to you? I know personally men that have died. My body is freaking broken because I'm in service of freedom. And you all won't get up when a governor says that, I don't care if you're from Virginia or not, and go down there and stand in full force saying that this governor is not coming back to work. Same thing with your senators or your congressmen. I don't care if they're from Texas or Colorado or anywhere else. You surround them and you don't let them go back to work. You impeach them. Many of these people that's what they feel. And I don't care if you say you're liberal, okay? There's no way you could stand for a baby being born and then deciding whether or not it lives or dies. That's murder. Let alone what you feel about abortion, which I feel is murder. And how do I go from John Bolton to this? Because it's the same thing. It's the same thing. You people sit and read the headlines and you assume it's truth. And then you read from that point forward into the lies, not realizing that there are other circumstances or other opportunities, or that there's a whole nother story in there. You look at this story that I was just talking about on Fox News. GOP develops aggressive plan B in impeachment trial as several Dems appear to support acquittal. You're starting from there and you're reading into the story. As you look in here, you should be asking yourself, why are we at this point? These headlines are just feeding into this frenzy. Why isn't John Bolton going to jail for writing a book about his time in service in a national security position, and the president's still there? His words and actions still have a detrimental effect on our national security. He should be, listen, if it was me, I would be going to jail. And do you know who I'm assuming? That book had to go through the White House red tape to get released and approved. Who do you think approved that? You know that guy Vindman? His brother works in that office where they approve these books. Now, if you don't think that these two twin brothers, whose father came over from the Ukraine or some area over there It's not odd enough that two twin brothers whose father came from a place where the the communists existed at one point. We don't know what his loyalty is to the Kremlin, or what used to be the Kremlin, or to anybody else. KGB, we don't know. And his two sons work in the White House. And we can measure off the behavior of Major Vindman, who testified in front of Congress against President Trump. We can measure off his behavior and the words and actions that he took, and it is leftist. Leaking information. These are issues that can cause national security problems because he is a tool in the communist socialist toolbox. So John Bolton's book should have never gotten approval. It shouldn't be getting released. And John Bolton should be arrested for trying to write about his national security position during a time of national security importance. It would be that way for us. Now, what I was just saying about the American people and about John Bolton, how does that go back? How am I going back and forth? Because it's all the same. It's all the same. You wake up, I'm living in a country that's free, and that's the headline that you believe. Freedom, Second Amendment, First Amendment. Guess what, folks? There are places in this country you cannot go and say what you feel about somebody that's different than you. You will go to jail for it. It's almost impossible for me to get a license to carry a concealed handgun, even though I have over 20 years of service, official service, in some of the most dangerous and dangerous positions and important positions of national security. It's ridiculous. So your Second Amendment and your First Amendment are injured. You need to realize that. It's not like you look at the headline, land of the free, home of the brave. Thank you for your service. Red Friday, military, all those deployed. Bullshit. I call bullshit on that. You know why? That's a headline. That is a headline to get you spun up and make you think it's all great in the country. It's not. Those men and women that are going out and laying their life on the line are doing it for crap reasons. Those people that are deploying them, most of the time, are criminals or addicted to careerism. And they're not doing anything. They're not being used in any way, shape, or form properly to defend against fundamental Islam or any other problem, communism, and the creep of communism in this country. You have to realize this, folks. The headlines, where you start with the headline, your view of reality is skewed from that point forward. If it's the truth you're looking at, then you're going to be able to follow the truth. If it's a headline that says this or that about John Bolton, if it's a lie, or if it's written in a certain way to kind of push you away from the fact that what John Bolton is doing is a crime, well, then you're not even going to think about that. You're just going to go right into the political game. And if a governor in New York or a governor in Virginia or anywhere else in this country says that they should kill babies, and that's the headline. Governor says that babies should be put to the side, given care and comfort, while the parent decides whether or not they should kill them or terminate them. Your outrage does not equal reality. And you think there's nothing you can do about it. And I think the people in Virginia a couple weeks ago showed that there is. I think, honestly, myself, they should have stood there and never let that guy go back to work. They should have impeached him right there. That's the power of the people. I don't care what the politicians have convinced you. The reality is you are the end authority on who serves in this country. And there may be a political process like impeachment or all these things to get them out. But folks, in times of emergency like this, where we got people who are saying they want to murder children, take away your rights, damn the Constitution, you better be standing together. Forget about liberal or conservative, Democrat or Republican, libertarian. Forget about that stuff. The Constitution is your litmus test, and that is what you stand with. And you stand together. The Constitution is your foundation, and you stand side by side for the Constitution. What you will realize, if you do that, all this other stuff is just either bad leadership and bad policy or crap to keep you spinning. And you've got to realize that, or we are doomed. Now, what I'll be speaking about, I'm going to say this and then we'll cut it here in just a minute. On Thursday, the 30th of January, I'll be speaking in St. Louis. And I'm going to be talking about the education sector, or Department of Education, and the sexualization of your children. Now, I don't know if you realize this, but some people would think this is controversial. It's not controversial, okay? Transgender used to be a very small portion of people in the world. Very small, almost not measurable. But things, and I apologize for the coughing, but things have changed in this country, and they've changed rapidly. I know of many schools in New York where they are making separate bathrooms for transgender children. This is indoctrination. I went to United Airlines, and I was booking a flight. And it asked on there, male, female, what was the other word? It was undecided. I can't remember what it is. And then the other one was that you don't know what you are. Like one was you go back and forth, and one was you just don't have a sex. That was literally on United's form when you're getting a ticket. You got to put your name, got to put your address, have to put your birthday, but you can fudge that little area where you are telling them what you are, male or female. This is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. We have schools that have confused children so bad that they think during their developmental stage, and I have a degree in psychology, and I'm going to tell you this. If you've ever had dreams, homosexual dreams, when you were going through puberty, doesn't mean you're gay. Some people even have sexual dreams about their parents or their siblings. Sometimes it's their teacher. It doesn't mean that you are fixated on those people. Your sexuality is developing. And what you have to understand, if you don't get this, is that while this is developing and these hormones are coursing through your body, you may see something or feel something, or it just may be that the hormones coursing through and your brain just formulates this dream. It doesn't mean you're sexually fixated on your parents. It means that your body is developing, hormones are coursing through it, and your brain formulated this idea in your brain while you're dreaming. But the education sector, led by the Department of Education, it was created by Jimmy Carter, a leftist, really a communist. Jimmy Carter is as far left as you can go. And supported by teachers' unions. Now, here's an interesting thing for you, if you didn't know this. The NEA is a teachers' union. Okay, when teachers opt in to pay for union dues, right? That's who pays for their legal fees if they ever get sued. And it's very easy in this day and age to get sued because we don't discipline kids and we have parents who are psychopath. Teachers are afraid, so they join the union. Well, those union dues in many cases are split up between other unions. One of those unions is the NEA. And these teachers in many places can't opt out of giving the NEA any money. So you pay dues, part of that money is going to go to the NEA. The NEA is a communist organization. It's been around since 1857, since the Marx era. And they are communist. And they are, in large part, one of the big factors of devoting their time and effort to get your kids sexualized. I mean, think about it, folks. This isn't just happening, okay? The transgender thing didn't just happen. There's not so many transgender people now that everything should change in this world, right? It's never going to be that high of a number of people. But I don't really think that they think it's going to get to that point. But it is very disruptive. And what it does is it takes the morals, and this is what they're really good at on these communist groups that maneuver through the education system in the rest of this country. They will do things so outrageous that when the pendulum swings back, it doesn't go way over to the other side. It stays to the left. So instead of people saying, listen, we can't teach our children this stuff about transgender and have transgender men and women teaching or reading books in libraries and having transgender day and bathrooms and all this stuff. We can't pressure these children at this point in time on their sexuality. It's something that should develop in its own terms regularly. That's what it's done since the beginning of man. And the number of transgender people that you saw was pretty normal. But now kids are so confused during their sexual growth that they think if they have a dream one day, or if they have for a month, they have this odd feeling that they must be gay, they must be transgender, I must have been a man born in a woman's body. It's not true. In certain circumstances, I will give you this. Things can happen when you're an infant. They've shown in studies, when I was in developmental psychology, they talked about how infants are touched wrong by a doctor or molested. Let's say molested. If an infant is molested, they will develop the same promiscuous behavior in their teens as somebody who's raped at 12. That's you should think about. It's very interesting. So there's things that can happen as an infant or a child that can affect somebody's brain, and things may occur where they may feel that they're not a man, they're really a woman, or they're gay. We don't know in all cases. But the fact is, and this is what I'm getting at, people are going to think I'm ranting on gays and transgender. It's not the case. If you're gay or you're transgender, hey, go live your life. It doesn't bother me. But if you think that hypersexualizing kids when they're developing in their sexual growth and pushing these things on them, that is not the case, that's going to turn out okay, it's not. Right? It's not. Kids have a developmental growth in their sexuality. It should be allowed to develop naturally, just like discipline. You cannot allow bad behavior to go unpunished in a child, because as they develop mentally, they will think they can act that way all the time. And they can't. There's a reason why you have discipline. Well, it's the same thing with this. If you have a kid that's developing sexually and you just push all this stuff on transgender, homosexuality, in certain cases like this teacher in Arizona telling kids in a classroom that religion and family are the cause of people hating gays or transgender. They're blaming religion and family on that. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I think it's very important for you to realize this, that along with all the stuff I was talking about before, this game that's being played, if you think, and I do care about this country, I do care about the children in this country, and I do care about equal rights and taking care of adults who have made the decision that they're gay, or which, to tell you the truth, I don't really want to know who you sleep with. Okay? I don't. To me, gay is the same thing as calling somebody black or white. It's not anything that I see. I don't need to see your sexuality. I need to know if you are an American that believes in the Constitution, that you're willing to stand next to me in the fight, and then if I hire you, if you're a great worker. I don't care what color you are or who you sleep with or whether you're a man or woman. I mean, man or woman does play a part. I know somebody who's a female firefighter. I know several of them. And they're physical fitness beasts. But not every woman can be a firefighter. Not every woman can be special forces. They should be able to have their own special forces group. And I'll talk about that in another podcast. But I don't care. If you're thinking I've been saying all this stuff because I don't, because I stand against gays or transgender, that's not the case. I don't care. You live your life. I will stand next to you to support your right to live how you want to live. But don't think that I'm for a second going to stand for the sexualization of our youth or going in and pressuring kids to accept things that are not reality, because children are fragile and they are developing human beings. And if you put fake nonsense in their brain and they believe it, they will grow up and be miserable, unhappy, unadjusted people. And that's what's occurring in the Department of Education and in schools all around the country, and supported and pushed forward by unions like the NEA. If you have children, or even if you don't, you should care about the quality of their life and their growing up and developing naturally. You're not going to let children go run around and do, actually the school system does this too. They've taken away the ability to paddle kids. I got paddled when I was in school. I'm still alive. This is the first year we go to SHOT Show. We didn't do it. We all go to this big German restaurant and somebody will buy you a shot and you get paddled by the waitress, and it freaking hurts. And it leaves a mark on you. But guess what? I've not died from it yet. Children need to be disciplined. We've taken that out. There's no consequence to their behavior. So we're creating these immoral children who have no boundaries in their actions, no consequence to their actions. And then we're telling them that sexuality is so important that at any age, whatever you feel is what you are. And that is not true. There's a developmental stage. They should be left alone. Boy, girl, man, woman, male, female, and allow them to develop naturally. And the same thing with discipline. Good, bad. You go anywhere out of those boundaries, you get punished. Not the good. You get rewarded in good. You get punished in bad. There's none of that. And they're creating children that they don't live in reality. And it's a problem for this country. And then you take these children who are going to be adults in 10 years and you feed them the same lies that's being fed to us. And what is going to happen? Socialism, which many of these kids believe is great, is going to walk right in, and they are going to crush our freedoms. Because as I'm talking about in my upcoming book that I'm going to have coming out later this year about teamwork or leadership, I don't want to go into it real quick right now, but because I don't want to give any secrets away. There is a cycle of life that I keep seeing as I look through history. People are oppressed, and then they rise to freedom. They come together, they rise against the oppression, they become free. And then over a period of time, that freedom gets taken for granted, and they become lazy and complacent in their freedom. That comfort is the cancer that kills a country. And so once they become comfortable, they start becoming more dependent, and that is the gateway for socialists and communists and dictators to walk right in. People give their freedom away. They just give it away. And those nefarious people take it. And then what do? They turn around and they oppress the people. And now they're back where they started. Usually takes 200 to 500 years. And that's where we're at right now. People are on the cusp of saying the same government that defiles truth and misleads our children and lies to you on a daily basis right in front of you. These people who set them up to be in a different class system. You're going to give your freedom to them? That's what's happening. Because people don't want to get in trouble, or they don't want to get off their couch, or I worked all day. Liberals don't work. I got news for you. They do work. A lot of them are very wealthy. They're just willing to get up off the couch and go do something. You see, liberals are always about change. Conservatives, or let's just say this, the left is all about change. Constitutionalists and conservatives are about the status quo. This is the way it is. Let's not rush to change. We don't need to change. Anybody who understands the Constitution would realize we don't need change. We need to defend it and keep it the way it is. But most people don't even know what the Constitution says. They've never read it. Many people, like the idiots in Washington, D.C., think that the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution are the same thing. You need to realize, folks, that the Constitution is not a living, breathing document. It's a piece of paper with a form of law and governance that was bestowed upon the founding fathers of this country, who created and molded this country. It was bestowed upon them by God himself. I believe that. For a reason. If it wasn't for that Constitution, there would still be slavery in this country and all around the world. There's still slaves, but not like it was. Women would be treated the same that they're treated in the Middle East, if not for our Constitution. If your skin's dark, you would have been treated different if it wasn't for our Constitution. Our Constitution, over a period of time, was set in place, in motion, bestowed upon these men, and set a series of events in motion to create true equality. And that true equality is simply this: the opportunity to be what you wanted to be. Nobody's going to give you a free handout. There's no such thing as truly equal, except in the eyes of your rights, not in your opportunity. Equal rights. The interesting thing about opportunity is you can make opportunity. People don't realize that. Opportunity is not something that just lands in your lap. It's also not something that you simply have to go to the right place and look for it, and then, it just springs up, or like people would say, because you got white privilege or something. No. Opportunity is something you create. Being in the right place, getting your education, doing things you got to do to get to that point, that's opportunity. But it's not equal. And it's not based on your color or your gender or anything else. People can be racist against you, anti-Semitic. They can hate you because you're white. You know what? Whatever. Go around them and keep succeeding. Don't fall into the trap of, I'm angry because, I'm oppressed. So what? You know what? You know how you get around depression? You just keep freaking churning away like a mad person. You just keep going like a lion. That's how you get around depression. Not activism, not all these things. There is time and place for that. Largely, in part, it's happened already. The stuff that you see about gay rights and all this stuff, by and large, it's made up to make everybody divisive. The majority of this country doesn't care whether or not you're gay or straight. They just don't want it thrown in their face. And if they believe a certain way, they should be able to believe that way. They want their freedom of speech and their freedom of religion just the same as anybody else. And if you're gay and somebody says, I don't like you, or you can't worship at this church, you know what? Go somewhere else. Why would you want to be around those people anyway? I feel the same way. I feel the same way around people in New York City, because it's a very dog-eat-dog world in the news and entertainment area. If those people don't like me, I just go around them and I keep succeeding. I rose out of poverty. I rose from being an only boy in a family with all girls and chose to be the man I defined. That's what you should do about your life. Stop worrying so much about who loves you or doesn't love you. Go out and be the best you can be. And when we do that, we start to realize that this country is so great and the Constitution is so amazing, because you can go and be whatever you want to be. Listen, if you're a female and somebody is berating you sexually at work, sue them. Sue them. Write a letter, get somebody to sign it as a witness, send it to yourself, and then go after those people if you have to. If you have to wait a little bit, you got that letter. I'm going all over the place with this, but here's the facts, folks, okay? And I'll just wrap it up. Whether we're talking about John Bolton and the impeachment process, this farce against the president, or we're talking about the education sector and this sexualization of children, here's a clue, folks. When you look at what's happening, like I like to call it the headline of the news, the headline of who people say they are, the headline of the Department of Education, and these teacher unions, if you know what reality is, you're going to know right off the bat what the truth is about that headline. And when you know that truth, then the rest of the story is going to pop right out at you. And most of the time, it's not what you see. And that story I keep talking about on Fox News, the story that I see in there is not whether they got plan A, B, or C to try to get the president out of impeachment in the Senate. What I see is a bunch of games being played, and how there's a bunch of people in the GOP that are willing to flip to the left, and those people should never be trusted. That is what I see when I look at that. And I see these plans, Mitch McConnell saying this, and all these senators saying that, and this. Where's the senator that stands up and says, this is bullshit, that this is an atrocity of the legal system, and the founding fathers would have never stood for this, and I will not be a part of this? Where's that senator? Where's that congressman? They're all too afraid to lose their job, or their ideologues. It's the same across the board. You look at the teachers' unions, you look at John Bolton, you look at the sexualization of the kids, you look at those headlines, and what do you see? Communism, socialism, careerism, lies. Lies that they're putting out there to try and get you to believe in their agenda. That's basically it. I think that'll do it for today. And I think we'll come back and talk a little bit more about this next week. I'll talk a little bit more about the Department of Education. Make sure that you listen to Sean Hannity's radio show on Friday. I may put out another podcast tomorrow. I don't know. It depends on how I feel, because I got to get ready for the speech on Thursday. If you're in St. Louis, go to my Twitter, @Gilliam_seal, Facebook and Instagram, Jonathan T. Gilliam. I'll put up details about the speech. Sorry about the coughing. That freaking SHOT Show sucks. Anyway, it was great being there. Thank you to Blackwater for allowing me to sign books in their booth. Frog Lube, amazing guys, men and women at Frog Lube. I love those guys. And I got to do a live hit from there with Newsmax. Thank you to Newsmax. And thank you to Sebastian Gorka for allowing me to host on Monday. Wow, that was really cool. And Salem Radio and Phil Boyce, all those guys over there. Things are happening, folks. Why are things happening? Because I'm in the fight, and you need to be in the fight as well. Join me. Let's take this country back. The president is going to turn the ship, but you and I are going to have to take this country back. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. Remember, wherever you see my face or hear my voice, you know what? The truth has arrived. This is The Experts. Peace.
You can't stop the truth.